Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. This week we have a very special guest, writer and director Bradley Elliot Norton of LowerGentry Studios. On his IMDb, you'll find 3 feature films, 2 separate web series, and all of them produced on either non-existent or shoestring budgets.
He's also my brother, and my mom makes me do movies with him.
And she, insisted that you interview me today.
Yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have at all.
No, not at all.
Thankfully, Bradley has a wealth of experience from live theater all the way to music videos, and today he's here to talk about the chaos and validation that come from directing what you've written.
On that note, I'm Czech.
And I'm Victoria.
And let's talk about films, because other than being a filmmaker and my brother, you're actually a giant film nerd.
Yeah.
And you've been helpful in correcting my mistakes in podcasts previously when I maybe misquote something about a movie. So let's start with your favorites. What's your favorite indie film script as a writer? And what's your favorite big budget Hollywood film script?
Yeah. I guess because you guys had said that you're gonna maybe ask this question, and I actually had trouble delineating between what's indie and what's studio.
Okay, very valid, because indie films are now considered things up to $6 million budgets, and I don't know if I would include that.
Yeah, even historically though too, because Empire Strikes Back is an indie film.
Oh,
and so is Return of the Jedi. It's self-financed by George Lucas.
I guess James Bond. Those are all indie films.
Yeah. And then some of the ones that you think are indie are actually studio. Like the Before trilogy is kind of studio, and then a lot of the indie film boom in the 1990s and early 2000s is all under. A lot of it was under Miramax, but then a lot of it was also under these signature select subsidiaries of major studios like Warner Brothers Independent.
Oh, I do remember hearing about that actually. A bunch of the studios started making their little smaller ones so that they could start calling them indie films.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so a lot of the big auteurs from that time period were more or less studio entities, but we kind of associated them with indie film. Even somebody like Kevin Smith, obviously he made his first movie Clerks on his credit card, but then after that he's more or less a studio entity until Harvey Weinstein cut him off, and then now he's independent. Now he's been independent since before the Me Too movement and everything, but so now he's independent. But before
great
that,
timing to separate yourself from him, though.
Yeah,
good job, Kevin Smith.
Way to see the writing on the wall.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think he would have probably stayed with Harvey Weinstein just for the money. I don't think that's a moral.
So. Let me
thing.
have this.
Anyway,
have this.
Unless you have something else to say there, Kevin Smith. You were anyway. Sorry, we'll get into that. Sorry, what was the actual question?
Well, I want to know indie film, but thank you for confirming my report of you being a film nerd, because that was an excellent breakdown. So I guess first we need to delineate the difference between a big budget Hollywood film and an indie film. Yeah,
so I think we should probably just say low and high budget, because when I think of a good indie film, I think that's more of an aesthetic.
Okay.
If you and I and Victoria and Zoe and Danny could make the movie, and the limit is only our imagination or our ability to organize ourselves, we could make the Before trilogy.
Yeah.
Because it's most of it is just 2 people talking.
Yeah.
Oh, what is the Before trilogy?
It's before sunset, before sunrise, before sunset, and before midnight. It's Richard Linklater trilogy. So I'm going to say that, since I just mentioned it twice. That in terms of that trilogy of movies was really important, especially the first 2, because the third one came out when I was about 26. But the first 2 had already been out for a while, because they made them once every 9 years, and they followed this one couple.
The same couple?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's Ethan Hawke and then Julie Delpy.
Nice.
And then, so that one's good. And also Scenes from a Marriage, Ingmar Bergman, Scenes from a Marriage, because that's kind of the same thing. It's almost, it could be a play maybe, or it could be just something that you shot in a room, where you shot, minimal locations, minimal actors, and then the thing that's really shining is the writing and the acting.
Yeah.
And that's when I think of indie film aesthetic. That's what I'm thinking
That's something that indie filmmakers can make or be horror.
Yeah, exactly. Or
I'm always going to vote for B horror.
Yeah, B horror. But even even with the B horror, I'm trying to think what's good indie horror movies. I guess something like Nightmare on Elm Street. I guess you could probably make that. Now some of the special effects are a little crazy.
Some of the special effects are, but you can do a lot with special effects software that's available to just your average consumer.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
even prosumer, just consumer now.
Yeah, for sure. That's a lot different. And then in terms of like big budget movies, in terms of writing that I really like, I think I would have to say The Fugitive. Does anybody?
Oh yeah,
Really?
Great
The Fugitive
movie.
is a great movie. I mean, I like a lot of those 80s and 90s action movies in general, but The Fugitive is I really like that movie. Other than the fact that you have to get over the fact that he survives the jump off of the dam, because that part's really stupid. Have you seen The Fugitive?
I have actually seen The Fugitive, which is a surprising thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, so he survives
a
the
movie I've
jump
seen.
over the dam.
Yeah.
That's dumb. But once you get past that, it's really awesome. It's a really well-written movie. It's also interesting because when you watch the behind the scenes, how they wrote the movie, they just wrote it on the fly. Like literally they were like, I think there should be a train thing that happens. The train should get derailed and that's how he should escape. And then they just like literally were making it up. So they were just burning money all the time as they would just shut down the set and be like, what's going to happen next? I don't know.
Wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think The Fugitive, and also, wait a minute, can I say something about The Fugitive?
Yes.
Is it the fun scrub story from The Fugitive?
There's a scrub story from The Fugitive?
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead. Your story's probably way more
Oh,
interesting.
no, it's not. It's actually like a realm of analysis. The reason that I like The Fugitive so much is because the arc, obviously there's like the Richard Kimball arc, which is Harrison Ford, where he slowly learns that, you know, the conspiracy behind his wife's murder, right? So that's like an arc, but the arc that's really important in that movie is Tommy Lee Jones, because you have like the character marker at the beginning is like, I don't care that whether you killed your wife or not, I'm just here to catch a guy, right? And then at the end, he's like, I know you're innocent, and I'm on your side now. But the interesting thing about that arc is that they don't cue the audience in to his. There's no epiphany moment. There's no like point where like all of a sudden it's like Tommy Lee Jones is like, I learned this bit of information and now I got it.
Yeah.
So it's like the audience learns the information as the character Tommy Lee Jones is learning it, and then the filmmakers are smart enough to just assume that the audience is going to assume that he's on their side, and then you don't really quite know. So there's like a little bit of a tension of like, oh, is Tommy Lee Jones intelligent enough to like get all of this information? And maybe he's not. And then you finally are released full of like meaning and surprise when he says, "Kimball, I know you're innocent," at the very end. And like a few other movies have done that before. I kind of call them it's like an unspoken. I don't call him anything, actually. I just realized. But like,
It's okay.
Now that I'm not finding the word for this, maybe I don't know.
it's
You're
like
a dude on a podcast. Just be authoritative. It's fine. Just make up the word.
Well, no,
for
it's
it.
like an unspoken like character change. It's like it's never really telegraphed. Like other movies that like Schindler's List does it really well.
Okay.
Right, where like all of a sudden Oscar Schindler goes from like he's like he's not really pro-Nazi, but he's like an industrialist and he's like pro-making money, and he doesn't really give a shit about Jews or killing them, right? Or taking advantage or exploiting their labor at least. And then he goes from literally saving Jews, and you can't really point between like at what moment exactly he made the change, and the movie doesn't telegraph that.
Oh, okay.
And another movie does it too. 1957's Billy Wilder movie, Ace in the Hole, does a similar thing. You watch that one. That's the one with Kirk Douglas, where where the guy's stuck in the bottom, and then he's trying to use that. The journalist is trying to use that to create like a big carnival around him. And at some juncture, he grows a conscience, but you don't know at which point it is.
Yeah,
and that's really smart, and it's like complicated writing because you have to constantly like give the character a piece of information, and then you have to have the character kind of act in a very like hedonistic or selfish way that makes you think as an audience member like, oh shit, he didn't learn the fucking lesson, you know?
Okay.
Oh, can I swear on this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's kind of like the opposite of law-abiding citizen then, where like he starts out and you kind of agree with him and all the vengeance and everything that he's after until suddenly he's killing a lot of people that had nothing to do with what happened to his family, and he's just kind of completely off the rails.
Yeah. I guess it would be the opposite in terms of the moral.
Yes, the morality scale flipped from right to left.
Yeah, exactly, like the moral scale. But I can't remember Law-Abiding Citizen I think you know why he's going off the. Isn't there a point where you're just like, oh, I'm no longer with this character?
I really love that movie because that point changes for everyone, and it's really fun to watch it with people, and then you can decide how good of a person they are or not.
Oh, gotcha.
You can judge them.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a Breaking Bad scenario. It's like nobody's with Walter White after he lets Jane die, right? Like,
no, I wasn't with him after episode 3.
No, that's what I'm saying though. But certain people are with him for longer. They're like, well, I mean. He had to kill that one guy, and then
I mean, he had to sexually assault his wife, but other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, but then nobody's with him at that point.
By the end.
So by the end of season 2, and then you have 3 more seasons, which is great. I love that show. I'm not shitting on it, but yeah,
it is a great show. Better Call Saul. I don't know. I think I would argue Better Call Saul might be better though.
Better Call Saul had better cinematography.
I don't agree with that. Actually,
loved the cinematography in Better Call Saul.
Well, no, I love a lot of the cinematography in both shows, but I don't like the lensing as much in Better Call Saul. I think they go to like smashed sandwiches lenses too often, and I think it messes up the visual grammar. Where Breaking Bad never made that mistake. I don't think.
I loved the super wide angle lenses. I thought that was so great.
They were great. I loved that they actually cared about the composition of the shots a lot more in Better Call Saul than Breaking Bad. Like they were very well done shots, but the composition was just, there was more time and energy put into it for.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like the production schedule, when you look at it, is obviously way different. They spent a lot more time on Better Call Saul.
Well, they had more budget. They had more following. They were set up for success because it was going to be a successful spinoff of an already wildly successful show. Like, you would hope it would be better in certain aspects than the original.
For sure.
It has to be.
Yeah, the only thing that I just don't like is just like it's not that it's the ultra wide. I think we went through shot by shot a sequence once.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And then I was just like, do you see what's bugging me about it? Because what it is that like, it's not the fact that they shoot it super wide, is that when they cut, they intermingle the super wide with like different lenses. And I don't know, there's something about my eye that I just don't like that. Like when you're shooting a scene, like I sometimes am like, all right, well, you gotta stay within like a certain millimeter like spectrum, or else it feels like different worlds to me.
I felt like it added like that jarring sense to a lot of really weird places, like especially inside the brothers' house. They would do that a lot.
Yeah,
and I liked it. It made it feel very uncomfortable and disjointed to me.
Oh, okay,
which his house was. It was very.
Yeah, but then but why wouldn't you just use the same lens for the wide and then just use it up close? I mean, I guess you would have like refracting problems where it would be like you would see the curvature of the lens, which I guess maybe you would want to go away from.
You might not want that.
But I mean, Kubrick did it on Clockwork Orange and it was fine.
So. Good point. Good point. Should we shy away from some of these famous things and
very oddly specific things?
Yeah, because let's talk about writing.
Okay.
Because that's definitely your strong suit, Bradley. How does one begin to write better for film?
I think like part of it is, I mean, for me personally, it's been trying to understand that there is no such thing as being a good writer. There is just only good writing.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, I'm already going to stop you. Can you elaborate? Like, because like there's no
just
personality or style that makes you a good writer, or do you mean like cut yourself some slack? Not everything you write is going to be gold.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's the latter mostly. I think it's just like it's kind of like the cliche, you're only as good as your last thing. But I think it's better than that. It's more like basketball, where every 24 seconds, like I could splice together a reel and make Michael Jordan look like the worst basketball player ever. Like, because in the end, like every game is divided in these 24-second little segments, and you can like brick a shot and you miss like 50% of your shots. So I just like think of it as just, if I fail at something, it's like, well, that was just that one thing, and then just move on to the next thing. So I think the secret to it, and then also if you're getting jealous of people that haven't been writing as long as you, and then they write something amazing, it's like, okay, well, he just hit the 3-pointer,
Oh, just walked onto the court, first shot, nailed it.
He might have innate talent. He might, it's just like, there's just good writing. That's it.
Yeah.
And you can fall into it. It can be arbitrary. It can be accidental. It can be luck. But in terms of like kind of respecting the writing gods, the best way to increase the likelihood that you're going to write something good is that you have to just do it all the time.
Yeah.
Or do it as much as you possibly can. And then for me, I've kind of like waxed and waned as I've, grown older. Like in my 20s, I went through like a year and change where I wrote 500 words a day, no matter what, even if I was like hungover or drunk or whatever. I just wrote 500 words a day. It didn't matter.
500 exciting words to read a few days later when you're like, what was I talking
So,
about?
So you just, and then I kind of fell out of that as we've been, because obviously during production time, I don't really do it. And then during other times, I didn't really do it. But then like lately, since especially I've been lucky enough in the last couple of months to not have a day job, I've been very like resolute, like it's 1,000 words a day no matter what. And sometimes those 1,000 words suck. Sometimes they go in the wrong direction. And then if you just do it all the time, what happens is that you're more willing to throw things away. And you're more willing to understand that if you're feeling it, it doesn't mean that the product is good. It's very easy to sit down and just be like, man, I got emotional. I cried while I was writing the scene. But that doesn't mean that the audience is going to cry when they watch it.
Yeah.
And then so it's easier to then kill your darlings because then you can more easily reconcile what you think is there with what is actually there. So your view becomes a little bit more objective as you do it more often.
You've just become better at objectively assessing your own work and your own writing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the only way to do it, is just kind of do it as much as you can, or just be like a genius. And I don't know what that is though. I don't know. Like I've met people that are like really good and they can just write really good dialogue, but then but you can't mimic that. That's not like a practice. So I guess approach it as a practice as much as possible, and not worry about the output as much as you were going to. But the thing is that what brought you to the desk anyway in that blank piece of paper was your own neuroses. So you're never going to get rid of that.
There we go. That's good advice.
I was going to say one of the things that I love the most about your writing, which, to be fair, there is a lot to enjoy about your writing, just on the whole. You write really solid stories. But I love that your characters are whole-ass people. And they all behave different, and they sound different, and they act like you actually put the intention into building these characters in the script. You're not just leaving it all to the actors to have to do it. And that's really cool. Is that something you sort of just developed on your own? Was it something you saw in projects you really liked? Like, where did that kind of come from?
Yeah, I think that like in terms of, because dialogue is always tricky because it's really easy when you're sitting down to write, it's really easy to make it almost like a acting improv with yourself, where you're just like, this guy says ba-ba-doop-a-doop, and this guy says bloop-a-doop-a-doo, and then they end up just sounding like you just talking to yourself.
Yeah, see, such good writing. Listen.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't really think that that's necessarily a bad thing all the time. I mean, if you read scripts by like David Mamet or even Quentin Tarantino, it's not like they never necessarily like every character has like a different voice. I think what they do is they kind of like almost lens it a little bit, where they create different syntaxes, which I try to do. So like certain people are more prone to speak in like kind of clipped declarative sentences, and then other people are more prone to like speak in run-ons. And then you just kind of change the filler words, and then you also kind of base their lexicon on whatever their job is. So obviously like a doctor would speak with different terminology.
Maybe a little more eloquently than, I don't know.
Yeah, than a pawn shop person, but then like a pawn shop person might know like the cost of something, I don't know. They might know the cost of a VCR.
Yeah.
I mean, they would say
or this microphone.
Of this, these microphones.
If we ever need to quit this podcast and I need to pay the bills.
There we go. Sell them off.
Yeah, but I think the big thing, like the big realization with me was there was after Brown Truck, our first feature film, I was very like despondent and sad about it. Not because of the technical quality of the movie was bad, which was okay with me, to be honest, because I just knew that it was going to be bad.
The first feature film, it was rough.
Yeah, it was rough.
Or is it just you being disappointed in your brother's acting?
And actually, you know what? I wasn't disappointed in that. I was disappointed in...
Of course you weren't.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was amazing first feature film acting. I had a bad crying scene there.
I keep hoping that one day it'll get chopped into a vertical video, but since Chuck chops the vertical videos, it hasn't made it into one.
I did turn it into a GIF once.
I do have that.
Okay, good. Good. But no, I was very despondent because I looked at I was starting to look at the project objectively, because it took us a long time to actually edit it together. It took us like a year, which now we can actually get it done pretty fast.
Yeah.
But I had to like teach myself Adobe Premiere, and then you had to like learn how to do audio stuff. And
yeah, neither of us knew how to do any post-production, essentially. We shot an entire feature film.
And then we just were sitting on the footage for a really long time.
Okay, there are so many filmmakers who do that anyway. And it's not because they don't know how, they're going to wait.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, like as I got like more and more kind of mileage, or, more and more perspective on it, I realized that the problem wasn't just, there was amateur some amateur acting, and certain people maybe it was a little over their heads.
When your mom listens to this episode, she's gonna be so proud of both of you for being so nice to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was like technical problems, there was coverage problems, but I was mainly just like, oh wow, the writing is bad. That really bugged me.
Because you can get if the audio's okay and the picture's fine, you can get away with a film if the story's good.
Yeah, exactly. And I was really annoyed by that. And then I watched it, and then I kind of figured out that there's a couple scenes in Brown Truck that are actually okay, that are not involving the plot at all.
Yeah, they were just we had a lot of
cute little vignettes on their own.
Yeah, exactly. They're actually okay. And then I was like, well, why is this scene better than this other scene? And one of them was this interview scene with Zoe where she goes and tries to get a job.
Oh yeah.
And then I realized like, well, why is that? And then I started to realize that like, oh, well, characters need to have a goal in a scene. Like they need to have like because in Brown Truck there's a lot of like, let's hang out.
Yep.
And let's talk and hang out for a while. And then like there's tension, but the tension is not really involved in like any sort of goal, and there's no obstacle. And that was the thing that I started to realize, like, okay, all characters need to have a goal, especially if you're seeing the scene from their point of view, and there needs to be some sort of obstacle to that goal, right?
Okay.
And
that makes sense.
And then so that was the first thing. And then I slowly, when we started writing We Speak, which was the second one, and that was like the major leap forward, at least for me, where I started to like really like think about dialogue. If you have characters that have a shared history, have them always not talking about something, like purposefully.
Yeah.
Like they're making a decision. So what ends up happening is that you, before a scene might be like a little too earnest, where the characters are saying exactly what they want to say. And what you instead do is you end up having the characters talk at each other or through each other or around each other. And then language becomes like a weapon. And that just makes more interesting dialogue. And there's a good summation of it. I can't remember if it's Mamet or Tarantino or one of those fucking writers. I don't know. But like where he says like all dialogue needs to be an action of attacking someone or defending yourself, no matter what. And then so if you boil it down,
there's no supporting or caring for people.
No, because that's not interesting to your ear. So I've developed like little rules, like if two people are in love, I have them never say I love you. I just think of another way of saying I love you. That then makes it attack or defend. And then if they don't love each other, and then because this actually worked in Stockton and Table Rock, then I use I love you all the time, just in different tones. It's like I love you can be a way to get you to shut up, like, or I love you can, or I love you could be a way to like kind of just put some balm on this burn that I just gave you. Like, I love you though, Whereas
like, you're an idiot, but I love idiots.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So like those types of rules are kind of fun to, just like always, how do you like amp just like the moment to moment tension and the moment to moment conflict? Like obviously, like universally, your movie needs to have conflict. There needs to be like a big goal and a big arc and a big plot. But then like moment to moment, that's what helps the dialogue go. It's just like instead of somebody just like, hey, how you doing? Then you just immediately like, why did you park there? Like, like that's just immediately like, you shouldn't be parking there. What do you mean? I always park here. No, I told you that there's and all of a sudden it's just like immediate conflict. It's like the opposite of stand-up, or not, sorry, improv comedy, where you say yes and. With writing, it's always between the characters, no but. Like it's just like, no, but you're an asshole. And then that doesn't mean that everybody needs to be mean to each other all the time. It's just like, that's the way that like the lilt of the dialogue needs to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you actually wrote a scene recently that I thought was pretty cool, because we're working on the next film, and we were talking about having somebody just come in to like fill out their like onboarding paperwork at a job.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is the scene, and we wrote it down like in the block, like this is how we want to start the movie. And then what you did was you made it instantly like a miscommunication in salary. And so all of a sudden the scene was interesting because
it's not just somebody like, here's my,
here's my onboarding paperwork, like let's fill this out, sign on this line. It's like, oh wait, I thought we agreed on X amount of dollars, and it's like cleared that up. And when you wrote that up, it made the scene instantly interesting.
Yeah.
So it had its own, like I guess that wouldn't be like a 3-act structure necessarily, but it did have that conflict and that problem and that goal.
Yeah, exactly. And then both characters in that situation have a goal, and then they're obstacles to each other.
Yeah.
So one wants to assign. That's like in acting classes. If you ever, you've gone to acting classes where it's just like wordlessly make him do that.
Yeah,
or
you have to convince somebody to get what you want, but they have their own other little goal that maybe you do or do not know about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I mean, like that's, and then obviously like anytime it's money, then people are like interested in that too. Because the difference between $48,000 and 60 is, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. That's $1,000 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about, I'm going to shift gears here a little bit because we did cover writing. But how do you keep yourself motivated? Because it's been a busy 12 years for LowerGentry Studios. And then our subsequent, like our most recent project, Stockton to Table Rock, which is now streaming on Amazon Prime.
Yes. What a good movie that is.
Yes.
One you can find a direct link to in the show notes and or YouTube description. And I know Chuck hates it when I say that, but I'm saying it because it'll be there.
That project took 3 years with the festival run.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Does that include the pre-production and the writing too?
Well, the writing I started the actual writing in 2019, but like I put it away, picked it back up, because there was the pandemic during that time. We started writing. We were putting together like a horror film at one juncture. Yeah, and then we started writing like a dystopian thing. Yes. So I think like the actual earnest work of it started in January of 2022.
Yeah, and then we ended up shooting in 2022, post-production up through the beginning of 2023, which was actually pretty quick, but then we were sitting on our hands with the festival circuit because we screwed that up.
I remember we made our last edits in December of 2023, though. Yeah. But it just sat in it sat on a hard drive for a really long time.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that. How do you avoid creative burnout in film? Because it is one of those mediums where the payoff is so slow in a lot of ways. Like the final product takes a long time for you to realize.
Yeah, I guess film's kind of nice because I do enjoy like every phase of it. Okay. Like the writing phase is its own thing, and then you end up with a script, which is nice, and then the production phase is its own thing, and then you end up with a bunch of unkempt video and footage that you have to then
throw on a hard drive and forget exists for a few months.
Yeah, exactly. And then when actors are like, "What's happened to that movie?" And then you're like, "I don't know. I guess moving on to this different thing." I'm just kidding. I don't do that. But.
No, don't be one of those indie filmmakers that you love to be on set, but you hate all the post-production work because it takes 3 times as long to get finished, and you don't have anyone behind you prodding you and cheering you on.
Yeah. You can be one of those people. You just either have to have a friend that you don't mind taking advantage of to do the edit for you, or somehow, some way find the money to hire someone to do it. If you don't want to edit, I don't think you should edit.
Fair.
Oh no, for sure. But don't shoot something that's really long and then just
unless you have
not finish it.
Yeah.
Unless you have the editing figured out.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that like, I don't know. I guess ways to stay motivated. I don't know. I guess I just like every phase of the production. I've never really had a problem with like the motivation part.
Oh, okay.
I don't think. I guess I do have. I do get a large degree, probably larger than others, a degree of satisfaction just sitting around by myself and then watching something that I've made, which is maybe not the most mentally healthy thing.
But
I feel like that's actually maybe a more mentally healthy way to look at your creations and your work than to sit there.
I mean, I don't watch them after like they've already been like I don't go back and watch like chit chats but I do have this like idea of myself when I'm like 75 or 80, and then I will have made 15 movies, and then I'm just gonna sit and watch like Brown Truck through all of them. And then I'll be like, yes, I've earned my place on this planet. I do think of that always as like my major goal.
Yeah.
And that'll be so nice, maybe. But we've done 5, so we just need 10 more.
10 more.
Yeah.
And then you'll just sit on your deathbed and watch the films and then breathe your last breath.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a third of the way there already. You're crushing this.
Yeah, nice. For sure. Yeah, I'll be dead by 60. That's right.
There it is. Great. Well, I mean, if we backtrack and make the films the quality of Brown Truck, you could probably be dead in like 3 years.
Perfect.
I don't know. It depends how long you sit on the edit this time.
That's true.
I don't really want to know the results of the next presidential election, so maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. There we go.
We'll just do 72-minute oneer.
Yeah.
10 72-minute oneers.
Hey, they did it for 1917?
Yeah, exactly.
Three of these films can be found footage.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Ooh, smart. There you go.
All right. Well, do we have any final questions?
I actually kind of do.
Okay.
Because you write. Obviously, you've spoken quite a bit about writing. Jesus, I shouldn't talk. But you also direct.
Yeah.
And you direct primarily your own writing.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience directing stuff that isn't your own writing?
Only in the theater.
Okay. And
Yeah, that was when I was younger. I haven't the last play I directed was Fiddler on the Roof, and I was like 19 at the time. So
that is young, so much younger than most people who direct Fiddler on the Roof, though. To be fair.
Oh, I was way over my head. It was not good. I did not know what was going on. I mean, I don't know. I do have a DVD of that. That will not be a part of my 75-year-old.
That's already a free one. You've got it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be revisiting that anytime soon.
Okay.
But no, I don't think of. I guess I don't see a reason for me to direct something. I think of directing as actually an extension of writing.
Yeah.
In terms of movies,
I think I was gonna ask, like, along those lines. If you didn't write it, but you were directing it, do you feel like, as the director, you would want to sort of change kind of how the story plays and goes?
I mean, yeah. I mean, basically, because I was actually getting in trouble at the Lewis and Clark Theater Company for changing the script. People will be like, "No, you're not allowed to do that." I'm like, "Why? Aren't I coming up with something better though?" Which, to be fair, Fiddler on the Roof in that second fucking act really drags.
I was like, I don't know if anybody is gonna argue that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think anybody's gonna stand
Really
up here and defend Fiddler on the Roof.
And also, like, the townspeople should leave at Anatevka. They shouldn't leave like in this weird way, like at the end where they just kind of like just cipher out. I don't know. They just kind of waddle out of the theater.
They needed the background dancers.
Oh yeah, I guess so.
The town couldn't leave yet.
I know. So, yeah, I don't know. I've never directed something since. I don't know. It's just, yeah.
Okay.
It's also like film is weird though too, because it's like it's not like theater, because it's not like there's just scripts like floating around that you can do.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a good
I mean,
point.
Shakespeare.
I guess you can do Shakespeare.
You got to adapt it, but
yeah, but but it's not like, in theater, like you literally like, I'm going to purchase a David Mamet play, or I'm going to purchase a Arthur Miller play, and then I just do it, and then it's all like all of that work is kind of done for you. In film, it's a little bit. It's just a different medium.
You just play the movie you want to see. There's no cover movies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, there's nothing.
there's a lot of remakes.
Oh, brother, where art thou? I guess that was kind of a cover. Nice.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing ephemeral about movies. It's a dead medium, right? So
yeah.
It's like you always have the thing itself, so you can remake it, but then that would be a choice, and you have to make it different enough.
Are you saying film is dead?
Well, I mean, it's a dead medium,
No,
it's like a recorded. It doesn't change, So.
Agreed. Cool. Well, thanks for the insights. Shall we just succinctly say farewell?
That works.
Excellent. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.